トロール。
Troll of
聞いたことあり
Jom.
ますよ。いいんですか殺しちゃって。あんた方にとっちゃ英雄でしょ。
英雄なら殺せなどと言わん。奴は重大な軍規違反者だ。敵前逃亡罪。処刑の命令は15年も前に下されている。
Thor's knew this as well,
あ
though.
んた方が規則にうるさいのは知ってっけど、いやはや15年ですか。ただね、旦那。身内の処刑なら身内でやるのが普通かな。
Ah, see, there it is. I knew he's gonna ask him something like this.
行ったんでしょ、アイスランドまで。どうしてその場で殺さなかったんですか。
Let's hear it.
貴様らの知ったことではないな。それ以上つべこべ聞かん方が身のためだ。
まあいいでしょう。前金でさらに金5ポンド。それで引き受けましょう。
He'll pay.
俺にそんな舐めた口を聞くと大きく出たな。
ありゃ、すみません。すっぽ抜けちゃって。お
I
怪我ないです
slipped.
お
か？
Or
い
it slipped.
おい、気をつけろよ。俺に当たるとこだったぞ、君たち。前金で金5ポンド追加。
Yeah.
ってことでよろしいかな。
いいだろう。
トールズってのはどんな戦士なんですかね。見た目とか戦い方とか。
Yeah.
トールズはすでに戦士ではない。
ビョルン、いい槍だったぜ。
Bjorn.
さすがのフローキの旦那も面食らってた
Yeah.
よ。
そいつは見たかったな。
口だけではないようだな。
Interesting character, man. Bjorn, another familiar name.
ねえ、
そしたら
私まだ眠いんだけど。あれ、お弁当忘れてる。
母ちゃん、イルバ、
Yelwa.
ちょっといいかな。
Another one?
俺が先だ。
よそ当たってくれる？
大樽いっぱいの金貨を持ち帰るぜ。
張り切っとるな、若者たち。
Yeah, they're excited, but
全部で5人とはちょっと少なすぎやせんかの。
トールズが5人でいいと言うとるんじゃ。
まあ奴がそういうんじゃ仕方ないな。
あ
come back safely.
気をつけてね。
あ、
戦場に行かないの？
内緒内緒。ヨムスボルグに行く途中、一度ノルウェーに寄る。トールズのやつ、若造どもをそこへ置いてけぼりにするつもりだ。若造どもを連れて帰る。5人っちゅうのは、わしのボロ船で連れ帰れる限度に過ぎん。
Right.
あいつは誰一人戦場へ連れて行かんよ。トール
That's
ズ
the
とは
problem, though.
そういう男だ。
He doesn't want to do it, but he doesn't know about this ambush that's coming in now. Or the hit that's been put on him.
それじゃトールズさんは一人で戦場へ行くの？
Those looks.
何あのオール。
トルフィンのやつ、父上のお見送りもしないなんて。
トルフィンに伝えてくれ。つまり
Helga?
はい、伝えておきます。
Yeah, I was gonna say she knows. She knows.
頼む。
She's sweet. Helga's she's a sweet presence in his life. Wow, so Thorfinn, is he in the crowd? Thor's is probably not going to come back, so it's a bit surprising.
手の皮がベロベロだ。
Boys to men.
潮流に乗ったから、あとは勝手に進むよ。
それでもう引き返せないってこと？
Oh my
ま
god.
あそうだな。
He snuck on. Yeah, I knew it was too. See now the fact that he's on here. Oh my god. Out on the open sea.
このいたずら。
父上、海だ。
Man.
しかしきな臭いなこの山。
なんで？
フローキーの旦那さ。
Yeah.
どうも隠し事が多すぎる。トールズ処刑の命令ってのは嘘だな。ほぼ確実に暗殺さ。支援かなんか知らんが多分すべて。
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems personal.
殺して金もらうことに変わりはねえだろ。
A hit's a hit,
自分の部
paid
下を
hit.
使わないのはなぜだと思
命令違反の汚れ仕事だからじゃね
う。まあな。それもあるだろうが、損害を恐れているんだとしたら。
Oh.
狩猟に言い訳が聞かねえほどの大損害だ。
えの。用務戦士団一個正代がか中華戦士一人に。バカ。
Washed up? Kaki.
面を拝んでみたくなったぜ。ヨウムのトロル。少しは楽しめる男だと嬉しいね。
As expected, he has a lot of questions about this hit. That's quite the sight, isn't it?
戦場ってどんなところなんすか？
You don't want to find out, kid.
トールズさんはあちこちで戦ってきたんでしょ？俺も一発大将首取って男になりてんだ。
Oh boy.
ユルバが好きか、あれ。
いやー、好みっすね。かわいい。
Yeah, me too, bro.
俺の初めての子なんだ。うるせえな。赤ん坊ってのはみんなこんなに泣くもんなのか。狩猟はおの子をお望みだ。
Even then, you can see his demeanor's changed so much since having a
軍団の狩猟の
child.
娘なんだ。
Oh, the
なん
leader of the army.
病人のような顔色だった。
名前をつけてあげて。
適当につけておけ。俺は忙しい。
トールズ、
Name the child.
この子に名前を。
Hmm.
その後15年一緒にいるが、ヘルガが起こったのはその時だけだ。
She wants him to connect,
ユ
right?
ルバという名は俺の母の
Ah.
とっさに浮かんだ。今思えばあの時からだ。
Well, that's.
俺はすっかり戦場が怖くなっ
There it is, right? It changes you.
昔を知る戦友たちは俺を罵るだろうな。
The guy, what was his name in episode 1? Oh man, the fact that he's here. Yeah, a lot of the things I was talking about in my last discussion.
ここイングランド。
アイスランドとノルウェーの真ん中だ。ここで一休みすると旅が楽になる。こ
Scandinavia.
の先の入り江に村があるんだ。そこで飲み水を補給しよう。
Oh, the
商
cove.
売もできるぜ。
Oh no. Oh no. This is making me so uneasy.
ほら、頑張れ。おかしい。
Ah.
何がだ？
さて、何がだろう。だが、前に来た時とは何かが。
Oh. Yeah. There's people up there.
そうか、家の数だ。
引き返そう、レイフさん。よくない気
Yeah.
配がする。地形も
Might
悪
be
い。
it's too late though, isn't it?
マジですか。
Oh man. See, in addition to these young men that came along, now his son is here, right? That really changes things up and how he's potentially going to react to this situation now. Shit. Oh man. Interesting fellow.
どうってことねえよ。たった2隻だ。
Oh
よ
boy.
せあれ。奴らは手だれだ。農民が夏場の出稼ぎでやってる海賊とはわけが違う。
These
お前
are
の叶う相手じゃない。
being straight up about it. Oh man. Ah, that sigh. He knows, man. Oh, taking it up.
"身を守るためだけに使え。いいな。いざという時だけだぞ。
よーしやるぞ。
簡単にやるなんて言うな。
There you go. Oh,
ビョルン、あんたそのキノコ。
kind of like
それっぽっちか。
Rollo, isn't he?
おい、アシュラッド。
Ashland. Ashland.
あれ、俺に任せてくんねえか。あれっぱかしに
They're taking him so lightly.
面白くねえ。
Ashland isn't taking him lightly.
向こうもその気みたい
He already jumped over. Oh, he's gonna cut through most of these guys. Now you'll see the troll.
なんだてめえ。
Whoa, even the
やるね。ヨウムのトロル。
Oh, come on, man. All right, folks. Yeah, that is quite the cliffhanger. Quite the cliffhanger. I mean, that one really got me. That one really got me. Though it sets it up nicely, right? It sets it up nicely for this next episode. An episode that could end up being one of the most important episodes of the series, because, the path this story is about to take could start to shape up from this point on, right? And the path these different characters are about to, take could also come out of this next episode or the episode after that, because it's at that point now. And a few journeys might just be beginning, or might be getting their beginning, but unfortunately, at least one journey might be ending really soon. And I hate to say it, but I've had that. The feeling's been there since episode 1. The setup's been there since episode 1. But unfortunately, yeah, the moment Thorfinn kind of pops out of that barrel on that boat, I think that was, that was, to me, that was almost like a death flag. I mean, there's been death flags already, but that was like the definitive death flag. Now that Thorfinn is on the boat, right, and by his father's side, and about to get a first look and experience at the real world, right, and his father being a part of this real world, or his father being in the setting of a real world, because up until this point he's had pretty much a sheltered life, right, a shielded life essentially, but now he's about to see the cold hard truth of how the world really is and how it functions. I mean, everything I've been talking about in episode 1 and 2 kind of just carries over to this episode as well. Again, it does feel like one long episode, or like a film, right? But I was told by a few different people that this the first 3 episodes were dropped at the same time. So that certainly explains the structure of these episodes. And in terms of the pacing, I think the pacing of this has been fantastic, and it's such a breath of fresh air, right? Especially for an anime as well, right? To see this type of pacing, in this day and age, people just really want to occupy their minds for a moment in time. Now it's the age of quick entertainment, right? You have streaming services, you have a billion different options on streaming services like Netflix, right? So you can quickly get something in. A lot of market research and testing goes into these things, right? They know the attention spans. I mean, attention spans are so different now, aren't they? And you see that reflected in the type of content that's being put out there. And pacing as a whole has changed so much, right? Especially because of the streaming services now. Now is the age of dropping an entire series at the exact same time, right? So it's the binge era, isn't it? One of the most baffling things I've seen over the past few years, and much more so in the last 2 years, is the concept of people complaining if something isn't dropped all at once. That's how prevalent this binge culture has become now, that it's changed like the entire landscape of how people consume certain media. And this whole binge culture has certainly changed how pacing is handled, right? And Netflix is a massive deal at this point in time, right? So many popular shows drop on Netflix, and it's so prevalent, right? So I think Netflix and that concept of dropping everything at the same time and having access to every episode at the exact same time, so it can kind of ensure that binge fest, right? That's a strategy at this point. I feel like some of these shows are even paced, with that in mind. I'm sure these episodes are paced, or I'm not sure, I've seen it happen through some of these streaming shows that drop at the same time. You see the pacing is quite deliberate. You could tell instantly that some of these shows or some of these episodes of shows that drop all their episodes at the same time. No. If you had one episode every 6-7 days for that show, no, that pacing would be all off, right? So yeah, I think it's a breath of fresh air to get an anime that has this type of pacing. And again, from a technical perspective, it continues to be just absolutely beautiful, right? In its delivery, the backgrounds and the animation, everything is just so visually stunning, right? These 3 episodes have been a really nice experience, a really good experience. A great experience, and I'm really happy that this ended up being the selection from the poll to replace Shingeki. Now, near the conclusion of that episode, as it becomes abundantly clear to Thors that that he does have to engage with that side of him once again, and that deep sigh, and he closes his eyes before he goes to the chest, right? That side of him kind of having to come out of the chest. And even beyond that, the moment he decides to equip his child, his son, with that dagger, right? You see how much that hurt him, how hard that was for him, right? You see the anguish in his face, right? He hated that he's in this position, that he's been forced into this position, right? That at this tender age, his son is going to have to see this. He's going to have to look at the real world, right? So yeah, you really see it. And again, beautifully animated and drawn. You see Bjorn, again, a new name, a familiar name, but, a new character name for this series. He perceived this target of theirs as just a relic of the past, someone that's washed up. He used to be an exceptional fighter at a time, but not anymore. But you see the Askeladd or Ashlad. For some reason, Askeladd sounds right to me, but it did sound like they pronounced it Ashlad. You'll have to let me know the right pronunciation. But you see that he's not really buying any of that, right? You see that he's actually quite intrigued by this figure, Thors, the Troll of Yom. You see he's interested. I felt that Askeladd or Ashlad, his disposition is quite interesting. I've got to say, I like him so far. I really do. Yes, Thors finds himself on the opposing end of this character, but yeah, he's made a great impact, much like Thors. These 2 episodes, I only saw him briefly in the conclusion of episode 2, but in this episode, yeah, first impressions, quite an interesting character. You see that he certainly has this playful side about him, yet he switches to like a bold and serious tone quite quickly, right? I really already kind of like that about this character. And you see that even though this is his target, he has been paid up front as well, half of it at least, to go assassinate this target. you see that he has that intrigue about Thor's, right? You see that once Bjorn asked him, "Oh, can I try to take him on? Can I just take him out on my own?" You see Askeladd or Askeladd go, "Yeah, go ahead." You see that he's trying to see how Thor's kind of functions and the type of man he is, the type of fighter he is. He really wants to see how he reacts to this situation. Of course, as expected, he did the digging, right? He really, looked for as many answers as possible, as much information as he could extract out of Floki in the situation. And, he sees that there's something off about this. He calls it suspicious, right? And it is. And he's a clever enough leader or individual to know this. He could see it. He could sense it. He knew something's off about this. And he knows it's a hit. It's an assassination. He even brought up the notion that Floki might be concerned about massive amounts of losses, right? Huge amounts of losses. And, that notion kind of shocked Bjorn for a second, right? And yeah, but you see that, in comparison to the beginning of the series, him on that boat after coming out of that, daydream almost, you see how many men he takes on just by himself, and he absolutely just butchers them, with ease. Yet here, he, it's more the same. He is taking on all of these men or, opposing fighters that are coming at him, yet he had no intention to actually kill any of them, right? Even though they had every intention to harm him, to kill him. The intent to kill is there, right? Yet he did not, strike them in a manner that would potentially kill them. Yeah, it might hurt, but, it's certainly a non-lethal approach. And, I even noticed a few palm strikes. I think at least twice I saw a palm strike, enough that I noticed it. Right. So yeah, he used a non-lethal approach, and that in itself could play a part. And again, like I said during the reaction, it introduces a totally different dynamic having Thorfinn right there, right? And it is going to change how Thor's handles the situation. Now, of course, from his perspective, he's probably going to try to come to some type of agreement, or try to come to some type of agreement. I think his goal here is to get Thorfinn and these other youngsters out of there, right? Safe and sound. Get them out of here somehow. So he might try to make a deal. And yeah, so far he's had no intention of killing any of these men. He disarmed them, right? In a non-lethal manner, but he was devastatingly effective. These are like, the precision of his strikes is just exceptional, right? It's just brilliant. You see Bjorn is quite annoyed by this, and and these are like impressive pinpoint strikes, right? That it's a seasoned fighter, a legend of the battlefield, right? He knows just how to subdue these oncomers. And yeah, you can already see that Askeladd or Askeladd is impressed. He's impressed. And he kind of had this pegged. He, like I said, he also brought up that notion, right? Floki, he didn't want to take the risk of going up against this legend, right? For that reason, potentially, if he faces massive losses, how is he supposed to explain that to the higher ups, to the leader? And of course, the leader, some newly exposited information, happens to be Helga's father. Right, so that in itself is a big deal. In that meeting, right, in that sit down, he tells Askeladd, I just combined the two, but he tells him that there's been an order for his execution for like 15 years, right? But now that they've told us that Helga's father is the leader of that group, I just don't see how that's a possibility. How he would potentially send out that kind of hit on his son-in-law, right? So, I think Askeladd or Askeladd sees through that element of it, right? He's thinking that, there could be something personal here at hand. But at the end of the day, he's getting paid for a job. And he seems quite competent, like Floki himself also saw firsthand. Right. And, just in the last episode, you see that Thors was trying to teach his son quite an important life lesson. Of course, Thorfinn is a bit too young to really grasp that lesson at this point in time. But, now you see that Thors is going to show, or, his son is going to see his father's philosophy at play. right? For as long as possible, at least. The notion to defend yourself is certainly there, right? He even equipped his own son reluctantly, but Thorfinn and even the youngsters, some of the other youngsters, are going to see how this man, this fabled legend of the battlefield now, is going to function, right? So again, that in itself should be quite an important lesson for Thorfinn as well, and some of these other youngsters, regardless of their roles from this point on. And in terms of his philosophy, you see that there was quite a dramatic shift, and it's presented through this flashback, right? A bit of backstory as he's telling Ari about Ylva, right, his firstborn, and how much of an effect it had on him. It completely flipped his life upside down, right? Changed his whole outlook on life, his philosophy, right? You see that indeed he was this typical cold fighter, a warrior, right? A Viking, the Troll of Yom. Clearly he earned that name, right? And they showed me how effective and how devastating he is in the battlefield. Though having this child and having this new, connection and responsibility, it really did, flip it upside down for him. And I loved how, Helga was so strong in that moment, right? And he said it's the only time he's ever seen her angry. She wanted him to have a connection with this child. It's his child. Yes, you do have time for this. And yes, you are going to name this child. You are going to name your child. You see that he tells Ari that, this was precisely the moment everything changed. And I became scared of the fighting or of dying or the battlefield, not because he's a coward or anything, quite the opposite of that. But now there's a different responsibility. There's a different connection. There's this new life that he brought into this world that he feels a responsibility for, feels a connection to, and feels like, he wants to be there to watch this child grow up and be there for his significant other, right, Helga. And, the notion of his entire philosophy changing, it wasn't just that, he doesn't want to die anymore because he has a responsibility back home. He has a connection, that he has loved ones back home, his family's back home, and he wants to, be there for them. His outlook on everything else also changed, right? He doesn't want to kill anyone either anymore, right? For the exact same reasons. Now he has a different understanding, or he's looking at it from a totally different perspective now. He knows that any person he kills also has loved ones, a family that they want to get back to, right? And you see that you see a representation of that early on in the first episode as well. Again in that initial fight sequence on the boat. As he absolutely just dismantles these oncomers. That one guy he kills. You see as he's dying, he's got tears flowing out of his eyes. He remembers his wife, right? He said Maria. And, I'm assuming he's thinking of his wife in that final moment. And you see, that really dead look in Thor's face. You see that he didn't want to do that. You see that he realizes, what this means for this man and his family back home as well. So, he didn't want to inflict that faith on anyone else either. But yeah, like I said, his characterization has been fantastic, and it continues to be fantastic in this third episode of the series. As an impact character, as a flat arc character, most likely because he does appear to be a complete character. You see that there's the truth that the character believes, right? That life is precious. That no one is your enemy. You have no enemies. It is never okay to kill anyone, right? Never is it okay to kill anyone. I believe that, I can't remember the exact phrase, but, it was along those lines as he's trying to impart this important lesson onto his son, right? But of course, he's a bit too young to grasp that at this moment in time. He'll grasp it. I think Thorfinn is going to grasp that philosophy, that notion, but it might not be anytime soon. As I said, there's a lot of tough lessons ahead. And the moment he ended up on that boat, that really streamlined it. I'm going to try not to repeat a lot of the things I already said because, a lot of my discussion from the first two episodes, it applies to this episode as well, right? I don't want to repeat those things again, but yeah, a lot of tough lessons ahead. And this is going to be the first major tough lesson for Thorfinn, isn't it? Because a likely and potential death for Thor's at this point in time is certainly going to kick off Thorfinn's character arc, isn't it? And yeah, it could certainly. I think it's exceedingly likely that it could begin a disillusionment arc. At that age, if he sees his father die now, yeah, like I said, it's going to fill him with a lot of rage and vengeance. A lot of things you see in these types of arcs. Quite a tough road ahead after any potential death of his father in front of him. Now, again, I'm certainly leaning towards a death. That could end up, becoming a catalyst for Thorfinn's character arc, and could play a major part in his character arc, right? Establishing the ghost of the character arc, or the lie the character believes. It is possible, for the most part, again, honestly speaking, for the most part, I do think this is most likely going to be the end of Thor's, because it's kind of like right there, the setup for any potential character arcs. But, is it possible that they could accept some kind of deal? But as I say that, again, I go back to the notion that, this individual, Ashlad or Askeladd, again, seems quite competent. If he's paid for a hit, he's paid for a job. I feel like the characterization so far depicts that this is the type of person who is not going to go back on his words. That he's a man of action and not just a talker. That's the feeling I'm getting here. That being said, it doesn't feel like he's carrying any personal grudge against Thor's. He's actually quite intrigued by this man. He just happens to be the target of his assignment of this job, essentially. And of course, he has a crew, and the crew demands, or the crew has demands, right? You see that they really, like I said, work hard, play hard attitude about them. So of course, to lose out on that type of payout, no, I just don't see it. But, one angle could be that he could try to make a deal, let them all go, let my son go, let the rest of this crew go. I'll, join you, or I'll do anything you want me to do, right? Just let them go. Something along those lines is a slim possibility, I think. It all depends. At this point in time, they've already shown us that, he's not ready to start killing, right? Actually, it remains to be seen if he's going to kill anyone at all, right? That's another, interesting aspect here. What if he does end up getting, badly injured, and is getting injured by these men, though he's taking care of them quite easily, right? And Bjorn seems to be up next. And, Bjorn, I said he reminds me of Rollo because it appears that he might be the berserker, right? And you see him take that mushroom, and the two guys, those two brothers, they were quite shocked that he took the entire thing. So yeah, I feel like someone as seasoned and as precise as Thor's is probably going to handle that man quite easily. Not quite easily, but quite effectively. He might put up a bigger challenge than some of these other guys, but I think Thor's is going to take care of him. You see just how impressive and exceptional he is in his precision, and rendering these men useless quite effectively, right? Without exerting too much of his own strength, right? He's more about precision. And that's a sign of a seasoned fighter, right? A legend. So much so that, Ashlad or Askeladd had heard about him. He knew all about, Thor's, not all about him, but he knew about the name, or this legendary fighter, or, this man who has this concrete legendary status, right? Even, so much so that he even implied that, isn't he a hero to you guys, right? So his legend is far spread, that's for sure. Could there even be a possibility of him calling out just their leader, right? You see that as well. How about just you and me? You leave these other men out of it. And of course, he's, supremely confident in his abilities, even though he doesn't like to engage, right, in those abilities. But he, at this moment in time, it's quite a tricky situation. It requires him to engage with that side of him. So I could see an angle where he challenges this man, Askeladd or Ashlad, right, rather than getting the other people involved in this and become a part of this, right? And put them in danger. You know, essentially, I think he'll do everything. I think Thors is going to do everything possible to get his son out of here, and not just his son, these other youngsters as well. And you know, earlier in the episode, as they're departing, that one girl that likes Ari and hopes to see him come back safe and sound, she posed the question to Leaf. So does that mean Thors is going to fight by himself? Yeah, and there's that really poignant shot of him right in the middle of the frame. He looked quite resigned. He looked quite devastated, right? And this is around the time he's looking for Thorfinn. Again, the shot was so effective, right? Essentially, one last look at this lifestyle he's been living, this new life he's created for himself and his family since leaving that old lifestyle behind him, right? And again, I say it one last time because I just don't feel like he's coming back. I just don't think so. I really do hate to see this man in this position, right? I really hate it. And yeah, like I said, to see how he used to be before, again, it's so effective to have this man have this type of philosophy, right? Essentially, one of the most feared and respected and talented and exceptional fighters is the person who's adopted this philosophy, right, of pacifism, right? That life is precious, all life is precious, and that it's not okay to kill anyone, and that you have no enemies. I think it's quite effective that this is the individual that's taken up this philosophy. And again, you see that type of characterization in these type of characters, right? Characters that are really good at what they do, right? Devastatingly effective at what they do, but they only do it out of necessity or reluctantly, right? Unfortunately, his hand has been forced, and the past has come back. That chest has been opened, and the past has caught up. And I've been talking a lot about Thorfinn's character arc. Like I said, there's a lot of important stuff that could happen in these next two episodes that really outlines the rest of this story, right? Or the trajectory of the rest of the story, or the path someone like Thorfinn is about to take, or some of these other characters as well. If his father dies at the hands of these men, and of course Askeladd or Ashlad is the leader of these men, I mentioned he's gonna harbor a lot of anger. He's going to have a lot of vengeance within him, right? So in that sense, this could also be the beginnings of a revenge tale, right? In terms of character arcs. Now, of course, all of us have seen this type of story before, right? A potential revenge story. Someone becoming, consumed by that hatred and vengeance to, avenge their father or mother, their parents, or, a mentor. Of course, a lot of stories have done that before, but, it feels like it could happen here as well. Right, so there is a potential for that becoming the driving force for Thorfinn's character arc. I mean, realistically speaking, you're not going to see this young kid, this young character just, accept something like that if his father does die at the hands of these men. All the makings of a potential revenge story are right there. It's right there in front of our faces. So yeah, that could certainly be a major aspect of this character arc. But yeah, man, I've got to say, I really, really like Thors. I really like Thors. And it's really sad to, see him in this position now, in a position that I do feel like he is going to end up dying, most likely. But yeah, quite an impactful character just in one episode, actually. But, over the span of these 3 episodes now, yeah. They've done a wonderful job, or the writer has done a wonderful job of establishing such an effective character in such a short time span, right? So that's been really impressive. Before I sign off, Ylva, you see that she's quite popular. She's being courted by a lot of the young men in that village, though she seems quite disinterested in all of them. Thors kind of gave Ari a bit of an insider's tip. She really prefers strong men, right? Or she looks for strong men. I mean, in that sense, you know, you have Helga, who certainly married a strong man in Thor's. But, you know, I love Helga as well. She's such a sweet presence. She has such an understanding for her husband, for her partner, Thor, is, you know, kind of like the beauty that tamed the beast. She's just wonderful, isn't she? So, you know, it'll be tough to see her reaction to any potential death, you know, of her husband. Right, so that's about it for this episode. I've got to say, you know, I'm really enjoying this series so far, and I'm quite grateful that it was picked as the choice through the poll. So if you enjoyed this, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in full length for this episode, or maybe even early access to the next episode, consider checking out the Patreon page. Once again, it's only an option for anyone who's interested in perks of supporting the channel through Patreon or content beyond the scheduled content. If you are, consider checking out the link in the pinned comment or the link in the description. And if you're into social media, I'm quite active on Twitter, or at least it's the social media platform I'm most active on beyond YouTube. So, you know, the link for that is in the description and pinned comment as well. So thank you once again for joining me. Thank you for your time. And I hope to see you again soon for episode 4. So until then, take it easy.